Why does behavior vary in its time, space, individual personality, emotions, time?
For example, some of us are usually highly motivated early in the morning, but after lunch hour, will feel less motivated. Being motivated early in the morning emphasizes the influence of time on levels of motivation.
Individual personality.
For example, an extroverted person with a sensation-seeking personality type is more likely to be motivated to take up outdoor assignments compared to an introverted person. Franken.
Space.
There are students who feel more motivated to study in the library, while some others like to study in their rooms. The comfort and peace of a library exemplify an example of space as a factor that influences motivation.
Emotions.
Emotions, on the other hand, are more likely to play a mediating role to either enhance or reduce levels of intensity of behavior.
When you are happy, you are more likely to feel motivated and able to do your work well. However, when you are sad, you may not be able to push yourself to do it even though you know you have to complete it as soon as possible. Reeve.
Sources and expression of motivation.
Where do we get our motivation from?
How can we tell whether someone is motivated or not?
These are the two main questions we will be looking at in the following subsection.
Sources of motivation.
Reeve divides the sources of motivation into two main categories.
Internal motives.
Need.
Physiological needs, psychological needs, social needs.
Cognitions.
Self-esteem, beliefs, expectations.
Emotions.
Joy, sad, hate.
It is defined as sources of motivation that come from within a person.
They include our needs, cognitions and emotions.
Needs are conditions that are necessary for our survival and personal well-being.
They include physiological needs for food and water, psychological needs for freedom and close relationships with others, and social needs for achievement and power.
Cognitions are mental events like personal expectations, ambitions and imaginations.
And emotions are complex experiences which involve subjective feelings, biological changes and a strong sense of purpose.
External events.
It is defined as sources of motivation that come from the environment. Examples include environmental incentives, physical rewards, and emotional praise.
Expressions of motivation.
As can be seen in figure, when you see your colleagues at work, can you tell who is motivated and who is not? Although it is impossible to precisely measure a person's level of motivation, there are some vital signs we can look for to help us in making an assessment.
The first thing to look for is some important behavioral signs.
Behavioral signs.
Bodily gestures.
Facial expressions.
Persistence.
Latency.
Effort.
Effort.
We cannot precisely measure the level of effort put in by someone, but we can attempt to do so by using the definition in terms of number of hours spent on something or the number of tasks completed.
These signs, however, are only one of the many indications we need to look at. To get a more comprehensive understanding, we need to gather information about some other behavioral signs.
These signs, however, are only one of the many indications we need to look at. To get a more comprehensive understanding, we need to gather information about some other behavioral signs.
Latency.
This refers to the time starting from the moment you are asked to do something and the moment you actually begin to do it.
For example, if your boss asks you during a meeting to take up a project and you begin working on it immediately, we can safely say you are very motivated to work on the task.
However, if you start working on the project only 1 week after the meeting and delaying it without any valid reasons, we can then say that you are not very motivated to work on the project.
Persistence.
This refers to the time you spent continuously working on something, a task non-stop until you finally complete it.
For example, if you are working on a project and you continue working on it until it is done despite the various problems and challenges you face, this shows that your level of persistence is high and you can be considered to be very motivated.
However, if you keep on putting off your work, and often feel discouraged whenever faced with obstacles, your persistence is quite low and your motivation is not very hit.
Facial expressions.
This is a bit tricky and can be quite controversial.
While there is an actual science of analyzing a person's emotional facial expressions which is known as facial physiognomy, your own subjective opinion on whether a person's face looks happy or sad may not be enough to determine his or her level of motivation.
It could be a good indication, but must be supported by other behavioral signs.
Bodily gestures.
This can also be a good indication, but again, not necessarily decisive. Some bodily gestures, nonetheless, are quite obvious.
For example, when you see two people walking to a meeting, the first walks upright with fast and confident steps, while the other with shoulders dropped and feet dragging slowly and lazily, then we can quite confidently conclude that the first person is more motivated to attend the meeting compared to the second person.
In addition to behavioral signs, other expressions of motivation include physiological indications such as blood pressure, pulse rate, and levels of various bodily hormones.